The International Christian Embassy Jerusalem is your embassy in the heart of Israel, founded in 1980. From our headquarters in Jerusalem through our branches in over 80 nations and yours in Canada, we seek to challenge the Church to take up its scriptural responsibility to remind Israel of the promises made to her in the Bible and to be a source of practical assistance to all the people in the land of Israel. On today's program, in honor of Holocaust Memorial Day, we hear from the Christian Friends of Yad Vashem. Haifa Home for Holocaust Survivors resident Manya Hermann has kept the memory of her experiences in the Holocaust alive through her paintings. And we hear the testimony of Rita, a Holocaust survivor.
Pachernik, 1 year old, Poland. Valeria Leicht, 12 years old, Czechoslovakia.
Yad Vashem is so much more than a Holocaust museum. Situated on 45 acres on the Mount of Remembrance in Jerusalem, it is the world center for documentation, research, education, and commemoration of the Holocaust. The Holocaust is a defining moment of human history, in which 6 million Jews, including 1.5 million children, were murdered by Nazi Germany and its collaborators.
I'm walking in the Valley of the Jewish Communities. Each stone is a symbolic tombstone of a Jewish community that perished during the Holocaust in Europe.
The Holocaust was the attempt by Nazi Germany and the German people and all their collaborators and those who cooperated with them to eliminate the Jews off the face of the earth.
Okay, so my name is Eliezer Ayalon. I was born in Poland in 1928 in the city Radom.
That's the Holocaust, where my parents and my family, 100 people, were killed in cold blood.
I had 2 brothers and a sister. I was the youngest in the family, the only one that survived the Holocaust.
Whether Christians in Germany or in the occupied countries realized it or not, they were in fact facing a challenge to their faith.
Yad Vashem is entrusted with the mission of safeguarding the memory of the Holocaust and imparting its meaning for future generations. The very name Yad Vashem, a memorial and a name, comes from the Bible, where the prophet Isaiah proclaims God's promise, "To them I will give within my temple and its walls a memorial and a name better than sons and daughters. I will give them an everlasting name that will not be cut off."
From the Mount of Remembrance, from Yad Vashem, where we look to our history that represent not just the history of the last century, but at least a history of 2 millennium, it's a mission for the Jewish people and the Christian to try and build together something that will bring us together to our roots, which are the same.
Yad Vashem was created in 1953 by an act of the Knesset, Israel's parliament, in order for it to become the national memorial to the Holocaust for Israel and the Jewish people.
For me, Yad Vashem is the place where I am the closest with my family. And all my family, about 100 people, are inscribed in the books of Yad Vashem.
Overall Christian silence during the Holocaust was deafening. Attitudes toward the Jews during the Shoah, or Holocaust, ranged from indifference to hostility to outright collaboration with the Nazis. Sadly, the majority watched as their Jewish neighbors were rounded up taken away never to return. While only a brave few took risks to help, many benefited from the Jewish homes, businesses, and belongings they were forced to leave behind. The roots of anti-Semitism run deep in the soil and soul of Europe. A very specific responsibility for the events of the Holocaust is shared by Christians. The Holocaust could not have taken place unless the groundwork for anti-Jewish attitude had already been laid.
The church was compromised to quite a degree. People were not well educated. They didn't know really that this was false teaching. Even today, very often I meet people who do not understand what they encounter from some of the theologians of the 1930s, 1940s, that this was false teaching, and they think this is a teaching of the church. Wrong, wrong, wrong. And wherever Jewish people are at stake, it is also that the good Christians are at stake. This always goes together in history. It was in Nazi Germany as much as it is today.
And we stand beside a people who have suffered too long in the nations, and particularly during the awful years of the Holocaust. The wickedness and the abyss of evil of the Holocaust is well known to many of us and needs no explanation, because we can never really plumb the depths of such wickedness and evil. But we can ensure for successive generations that this never happens again.
In spite of the silence of millions and millions of people worldwide during the Holocaust and the resultant Shoah, or destruction, of 1/3 of all Jews in the Nazi death camps, killing sites, and ghettos, there were a few courageous souls who risked their lives to rescue, protect, and save Jewish people during one of the darkest hours of human history.
I helped save 160 Jewish people by hiding them with righteous Gentiles, with righteous non-Jews.
And it was this challenge that was asking them to act on behalf of their Jewish neighbors, to stand in the gap between death and the Jews. And some of them felt the call in their heart and they responded, and others didn't.
And it was very, very dangerous, not only for me, for the person who was hiding, and for the person who was a Jew who was hiding there. To keep us alive, somebody had to die or somebody had to suffer.
Thousands of trees have been planted at the Yad Vashem campus in honor of the righteous among the nations. One of those trees is for Corrie ten Boom. The ten Boom family was an ordinary Christian family living in Haarlem in Holland. They managed to save many Jews by giving them a hiding place in their own home while risking their lives.
And when Caspar ten Boom was left away, he said to the Nazi officer, "There comes a time in a man's life when he has to decide whether he will obey God's law or man's."
The story is so very, very important for everyone living in this world.
We must remember that the smoke from the crematoriums of the death camps in Auschwitz-Birkenau, Treblinka, Sobibor will evaporate without a trace if we allow ourselves to forget. And if, God forbid, the smoke of those chimneys are forgotten, there will be no meaning left in our existence as a civilized society. And that is my duty and the duty of many others who are speaking.
The Christian Friends of Yad Vashem was officially established in October 2006 in cooperation with the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem, to raise awareness about the Holocaust and its universal lessons today for Christian communities around the world. An annual Christian leadership seminar has been launched at Yad Vashem's International School for Holocaust Studies, ensuring that pastors and Christian leaders will be prepared to share this vital information.
We have to actually address the painful experiences of the past and why the church was absent or took such a silent stance towards the oppression of the Jewish people during that period.
But you, O Lord, shall endure forever, enthroned, and your reputation to all generations. You shall arise and have mercy upon Zion, for the time to favor her, indeed the appointed time has come. For your servants take pleasure in her stones, and have pity on her dust. So the nations shall fear the name of the Lord, and all the kings of the earth your glory. For the Lord shall build up Zion. He shall appear in his glory. He will regard the prayer of the destitute and will not despise their prayer.
In honor of the International Holocaust Memorial, I decided to show here a demonstration of my art projects that represent scenes from my life during the Holocaust. These are part of the pictures. There's not enough space for all of my artwork. But here, you can begin to get an idea of what happened during those horrible years of the Holocaust. In the middle of the night, in this picture, they came to our door. You saw these soldiers, and they put us out of our home. We began to walk on foot. They didn't take us in cars, or we began a death march on foot. I was a small girl, 8 years old. I didn't like to eat much, and I was very weak. And after walking for several days, I wasn't able to walk any further. I sat, and I said, no matter what will be, my mother and my father said, in a little while, they will kill you. She said, I don't care what happens. If I don't get food, I have no strength to walk, and what will be will be. A soldier came, and he was about to shoot me. And my mother, who was pregnant, and she went down on her knees and began to kiss his feet. Please, please, don't kill my only daughter. My father, that knew the language, begged and pleaded, please do not kill her. I will put her on my shoulders. Here, we're continuing the march, and he carries me on his shoulders. After we had gone for a few months, sometimes 40 kilometers a day, this was a march that no one wanted to take all of the Jewish people from Ukraine and from Transnistria. So they would take us to one place and then to another place. And my mother, at one point, she was pregnant, she began to have birth pangs, was in labor. It was about certain that they were going to kill her, because if you can't walk, then you're shot. Somehow, she was saved. Here she's going to give birth, and suddenly, just like something in the film, came a horse with a cart as they came close to us, and I remember this picture as if it happened yesterday. And he says to the soldier, don't kill the woman, I will take her to my house, and there she'll give birth. I don't know how he was convinced. But this this farmer was allowed to take my mother, and we all went to this man's house. My father, myself, and then my mother, we came to this farmer's house, and now I think that they had no children. They put my mother in a sort of storage area, and it was a deathly cold place. And we were very close to her. And we were there during the birth. The wife of the farmer is the one who helped with the birth. I heard the first cries of the baby. She took her in her arms. She came to my father and me and said that the baby had died. She took the baby. Until today, I have it in my mind that if this baby still lives in some place, I can never know. What village this was, we don't know. We were in many different villages. But this is the story in short. In the Ukraine, it's very cold in the winter. Sometimes the temperatures are below 40 degrees, minus 40. And we're not dressed as we need to be. We didn't have clothes. We were staying in places where they put the pigs, and places that were in storage places. Here I am very sick. I was almost, I could have died. It was very cold. My father, who had worked in taking the dead people away for burial, he took one of the coats of the people and put it on me. And he only remained with one shirt on himself in the terrible cold that was there. God really watched over him. I had really great, good fortune. All the illnesses and diseases that were there I experienced, but by miracle I remained alive. And now I would like to tell you about this picture. One day, all the Jews had received an order to collect themselves together on the Buk River. This is one of the rivers in Ukraine. And we were on the edge of the Buk River. And all the Jews that were there, the very few who yet remained alive, were ordered to gather next to the river and by the forest there. All the elderly people were ordered to get into the water, which were half frozen. The rest of us were to remain on the border of the river in order to watch what was happening. And you see here, some of them entered the water and never came out. The weakest ones. Those who remained alive, they told them to go under the water and to come back out, to go back under and to come back up. The soldiers stood on the banks of the river and laughed and at what they were doing and what was happening. I stood to the side with a few children, and of course I cried and screamed, and I thought I would remain with no parents. After some amount of time, which I can't remember how long it was, they were ordered, those who had survived, to come out of the water. And when they walked, their clothes were wet and completely frozen on them because of how cold it was outside. They came to the storage type area where we were staying, and they had fever. It looked like they were going to die. They were completely finished. I thought I could offer them a glass of water or something. I had to take care of them. In a miracle, by miracle of God, they remained alive. After this event, here, you see us when we went into the village. It was kind of boring for us to all the time be in this little storage unit area. In this picture, my father had to take the dead people's bodies in the wagon and cart them away, people who had died. This is a picture that I drew a couple of days ago.
Psalm chapter 102, verses 18 to 22. Let this be written for the generation to come, that a people who shall be created shall praise the Lord. For he has looked down from the height of his sanctuary. From heaven the Lord looked down on the earth, to hear the groaning of the prisoners, and to set free those who are appointed to death, that they may declare the name of the Lord in Zion, and his praise in Jerusalem, when the peoples are gathered together, and the kingdoms to serve the Lord.
I feel so fortunate that I came to this moment that I can tell part of the story, because for a family with 3 small children to survive the Nazi murder machine is a huge miracle. And this moment is also a miracle.
Rita is one of the 70 residents of the Haifa Home for Holocaust Survivors, made possible by the ICEJ.
My name is Rita Casimao Brown. I was born in 1934. I'm 81 years old. I'm a Holocaust survivor. I lived in a little town called Turmont in Poland. In 1941, when the Germans came in, they first asked to bring all the valuables, the gold or the money. They pointed the guns and they hit some people. So there was no argument. Everybody had to bring everything. After a few months, the priest came and said they have to leave this small little ghetto. We were hiding in grottos, in the forest, in bunkers. My father realized we can't go on with 3 small children. We were all getting colds and getting sick. And he dug a hole underneath the cow shed. There was no room for me, so I was lying there. You see, like I'm wiped out. This is how we lived almost 2 years. It was the kind of life that was hunger and fear. Hunger and fear, and the specter of death always in front of your eyes. The life was a nightmare, and the only way I could escape was sleeping, because I dreamed of food and the cookies that my mother baked and the challah and Shabbat. This is what I dreamed, the little parties, and the unconscious was protecting me, because if I woke up, it was a nightmare. My father said we have to leave, and we went through a lot of things in crossing the border from the German the occupation to the Russian. And then when I saw the tanks with the Russian army, I fell on the ground and kissed the ground, because I thought, it's the Messiah. My father said the Russians will be the Messiah. When we came into our town, Turmont, it was like a ghost town, because a lot of the residents took over the homes of the Jewish homes. Everybody was just looking at us like a living ghost. I had this idea that I want to come to Israel all the time. When I saw the beautiful view of Jerusalem, I was so excited. I was reading in the books, and I was dreaming of coming to Jerusalem. And then I saw the view, the panoramic view of Jerusalem, and I had my heart palpitated. I'm so happy that my children grew up here. I'm so happy that my grandchildren grow up here. It takes a while to get used to accept that you have limitations. You know, it's not the same like you lived before. If people come of age and they need to retire, for Holocaust survivors, there's no other place. I don't have to worry about anything, like if at home the television breaks up or something is leaking or something. This, you call one of the guys, or you go to the office and it's fixed. So many Christians love us. One thing I think every Holocaust survivor doesn't want it to happen, that we should be forgotten. And you are the ones that make it for us an opportunity that it shouldn't be forgotten. So I thank you very much.
We conclude our program today with some sights and sounds within Israel. Thank you for joining us today, and be sure to visit our website at www.icejcanada.tv or call us at 1-866-324-9133. Through your contribution to ICEJ Canada, you can participate by giving to Haifa Home for Holocaust Survivors, Women at Risk, Red Carpet Project, Operation Life Shield Bomb-Proof Shelters, Shoulder to Shoulder Aliyah Support, Beit Singers Children's Home, Israel in Crisis, ICEJ Communication Media Fund, Christian Friends of Yad Vashem, Magen David Adom Emergency Services, Canada Israel Young Adult Scholarships, Equip and Teach, Beit Rachel Strauss Inclusive Community, Gift Estate Securities Funds.